While the rise of right-wing extremism is posing an existential risk to the rule of law in constitutional democracies worldwide, in South Africa over the past 30 years, the rule of law has been tested by other means that posed a risk to the country's constitutional democracy. The question is South Africa's rule of law still intact, or has it in some instances become subservient to the law of the rulers?
You that we will pray as we prayed for the downfall of the apartheid government. We will pray for the downfall of a government that misrepresents us.
A lament and a warning from an anti-apartheid icon and one of the most ardent defenders of human rights.
Behaving in a way that is totally at variance with the things for which we stood.
The late Nobel laureate clearly felt that the bedrock of post-apartheid South Africa had been betrayed, namely the values enshrined in our Constitution. Chapter 1, Section C of our Constitution states that the Republic of South Africa is predicated on the supremacy of the Constitution and the rule of law. It contains 7 equally important principles. Government action must be based on law. The law must be clear and accessible. Human rights must be respected. Everyone is equal before the law. Our courts must be independent and impartial. Our laws must be clear, transparent, and democratic. And the rule of law should not become subservient to the law of the rulers.
Extremism is only as good as the people who are operating it. Peace is secure, progress is sustainable, and prosperity is shared. If you have those 3 P's, peace, progress, and prosperity, then you can say that you're living in a country in which the rule of law is intact.
Paul Hoffman is a senior counsel and director of Accountability Now, a non-profit organization that monitors governance and the rule of law.
The rule of law has been very comprehensively defined by the World Justice Project.
According to the 2023 World Justice Project Rule of Law Index, South Africa was ranked a mere 56 out of 142 countries in terms of its adherence to the rule of law, and at only 5th place in Africa.
South Africa has the potential to be the best constitutional democracy in Africa. We need to get our act together.
Despite being hailed globally for our progressive constitution, South Africa has not always complied with international treaties that uphold the rule of law and to which we are a signatory.
Now, Sudanese President Omar Hassan al-Bashir has arrived in his capital, Khartoum. It comes as the North Gauteng High Court in Pretoria said that he should be arrested to face genocide charges at the International Criminal Court.
Bashir descending from a plane that had flown him from Johannesburg, where he attended the African Union summit. Although he had been indicted by the International Criminal Court over war crimes and crimes against humanity, South Africa gave him immunity.
A rainbow nation at peace with itself and the world.
Of course, there have been high points in our democracy.
If you want the obligation of the state to respect, protect, promote, and fulfill the rights guaranteed to everybody in the Bill of Rights, then it is possible to boast about the number of houses that have been built, the number of schools that have been built, the number of teachers that have been trained, the number of hospitals.
But these achievements have been marred by service delivery failures. And then there was the arms deal, costing the country 30 billion rand, the ramifications of which are still felt today.
When the 4 arms deals were done and a great deal of money was skimmed off in the form of what are delicately called commissions, but were in effect bribes. That was a bad start, and it only got worse. The difficulty that we faced is that South Africa's basic constitution and original legislation did not have sufficient firepower to deal with serious corruption. We then passed the PRECA Act, that's the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act, And we introduced the scorpions. But of course, when the scorpions got interested in dealing with politicians who were corrupt, they were promptly closed down at the same conference at which Jacob Zuma replaced Thabo Mbeki as the president of the ANC.
Our democracy has not only come of age, but also rage. This is partly the residue of apartheid's legislated and systemic violence, the trauma of which has yet to be adequately addressed. Today, South Africa has one of the highest crime rates in the world. Prison and street gangs are now affiliated to international crime syndicates, often in collusion with law enforcement agencies. The epidemic of violence against women and children continues unabated. The rule of law is being violated daily in plain sight, despite the presence of independent oversight bodies.
Our Chapter 9 institutions have not worked to bed down constitutional democracy.
Of corruption and patronage have thrived.
Some people say as much as 2 trillion rand west, or certainly into numbered banking accounts around the world, because of the activities of those involved in state capture, COVID-preneurism, tenderpreneurism, and all of the multiple ways of relieving the hard-working taxpayer of the money that ought to be used for creating a better life for all.
Have not come forward.
The Zondo Commission of Inquiry into State Capture shed light on the extent of the rot. But to date, the finger of blame has not gone hand in hand with accountability. Yet civil society activism and litigation have scored significant successes. Such was the case with the recent court victory won by indigenous coastal communities against the government's granting of a license to oil giant Shell to conduct seismic blasting along the Wild Coast in violation of environmental laws and the Constitution.
This judgment, but of course we are worried about the fact that our government, our very own government that were voted into power, is not willing to listen and to engage with us.
The jury is obviously still out on how the newly formed government of national unity will fare in implementing the rule of law. But hope prevails.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. They had asked me whether I wanted to change my mind. So I was confirming that there's no mind change.
People in South Africa believe that they are involved in a participatory democracy. The South African electorate is sufficiently patient to give people of goodwill the opportunity of getting their act together and of seeing off those who would tear up the Constitution.